Yeah,
recording.
okay.
Yep.
Cool. But yeah, so I'm here representing the volunteers of Streets for People, as Tom said. We're a volunteer group of Burnage and Levenshulme residents who sort of support the idea of active travel measures in the local area to make the streets safer, to prioritise sort of walking and more active modes of transport to help improve public health in the area and that sort of thing. Or prioritising pathways for people is one way we put it. I'm just here to give a brief introduction as to who we are, what we've done so far, and what we hope to achieve in the future, hopefully with some of your help of the people who are here. So in terms of who we are, we formed on the back of the issues with the low traffic neighbourhood filter trial pause due to shared values and concerns. So we came together around the idea, as you'll have seen in the collective letter, that we believe that the majority of people in the area support some form of active travel measures and safer streets measures. We recognise that urgent action is still needed in the area, and I think one of the key things is we realised that the funding of the Mayor's Challenge Fund, which is the pot where the money is coming from, isn't going to be there forever, and if we do want to make change in the local area, we want to do it with this because we don't know when a funding opportunity like this will arise again. We wanted to ensure that there was sort of correct info around there regarding low traffic neighbourhoods and to make sure people were exposed to that information, as well as information, as we're talking about today, about school streets and their effects. And we want to get to the point where there can be a trial of some of these measures, or where we can implement the school streets as a community so that people can experience the measures themselves and feedback, because obviously one of the big things that was talked about and caused some controversy was the ability of people to enter into a consultation process and to give their opinion on these measures. We want the measures to be there so that people can experience them and give feedback on them. As Tom said, we've been waiting for councillors to begin this engagement, and they said would start, I think, back in July, and despite multiple meetings with them and sort of messages that have come out around this, we haven't received any more of that. So that's part of the reason why we've put this meeting on today, is to sort of get people's ideas together and sort of expose people to how these things might work in place of the council. As you've probably seen, we created a collective letter to councillors so that people can register their support for these measures and show the council how much support these measures have in the local area. This is now up to over 500 signatories from people and businesses in Levenshulme and Burnage, and it's still being signed every day, so that's good. We've, as I said, we've had meetings with councillors to try and get clarity on these issues, but we haven't heard anything from that yet. We also have a website, that's streetsforpeople.co.uk, which hosts various articles from not just us, but from other people in the community, such as Levy Clean Air, around how the filtered neighbourhood, the low traffic neighbourhoods, and these measures might work. We've also got Mythbusters in there and common misconceptions around sort of active travel measures and low traffic neighbourhood measures to reduce traffic, and descriptions of other ways we can make our streets better. So I would advise you to go and have a look at that if you haven't already. I know lots of people have been going to it. And yeah, this includes examples of how low traffic neighbourhoods and school streets especially have been implemented in other places. I'm sure you've seen in social media recently a lot of school streets going in London and other cities around the UK. So what we hope all of this does is clarify the council the urgent need to begin this consultation process that they've promised us, that we haven't had any more of, and sort of move quite quickly towards implementing something, because I think we can all agree that the traffic situation in Levenshulme is bad right now, and that something needs to be done. And the timeline, I think originally the school streets were supposed to be implemented in September for term coming back. So, and we will be 2 months into a trial of the filtered neighbourhood. And instead we're 2 months into a trial of doing nothing and inaction, which with the results being increased traffic and the situations we've seen outside of schools, I'm sure our speakers are going to go into a little bit. So hopefully that sort of summarised what we do a little bit. There's space for questions at the end as well, but I don't want to take too much time away from the speakers. So on the subject of schools, we have our guests coming up now that I think Tom's going to introduce, starting with Helen, if my notes are right, Tom.
Yeah, that's right. And we're well under the 6 minutes, but that's fine. I mean, you'll get an opportunity as well during discussion to say some more about the group. But I think that's a fantastic introduction, and thank you very much for doing that, Joe. And like you say, the next speakers that we've got have been working for a long time on the issue of safety outside of schools and the journey to school in our community. So they're going to be talking about the work they've been doing, how they see the situation as it is now, and what they want to see happen. So next slide, please, Andrew. So the next speaker is Helen, and she's part of a group called Clean Air Levenshulme, and she's going to be speaking about her work for 6 minutes. So when you're ready, Helen, I'll tell you when you've got a minute left. So
brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Sorry, I don't have a headphone, so hopefully you can hear me all right. So I'm a local parent with children at Super Kids Nursery and St Andrews Primary School. And my elder son's got asthma, which is where my interest in this issue comes from. So I'm going to talk a little bit about school streets and about air pollution in Levenshulme and Manchester. But first, I just wanted to explain a bit about how our group got together. We're a very informal group. And how it started. So about 4 years ago, there was a group of mums, me included, who knew each other through baby groups in Levenshulme, and we noticed that our kids were having a lot of instances of wheezing, breathing difficulties, a lot of use of inhalers, and we're having to go to the GPs a lot, and in some of our cases having to go to A&E a lot in ambulances with breathing problems from our children. So we decided to get together and do some pollution monitoring around Levenshulme, and we found that there are illegal levels of pollution and approaching illegal levels across pretty much the whole of Levenshulme. So the council does monitor on Stockport Road, but we think it's beyond that. It is across the whole of the area of Levenshulme that we find really high amounts of air pollution, including outside our schools and our nurseries and doctors' surgeries. So it's a really big problem. So we've set about raising awareness and talking to people about what the solutions are and what solutions people would like to see. So we've had several events at Arcadia and Inspire, you can see the pictures, and at Levy Market, basically lots of talking to people, trying to raise awareness and develop some solutions together. If we just go into the next slide. And we've also been involved in various campaigns for a clean air zone across Greater Manchester, and trying to get private vehicles included in that. So we had some media coverage in The Guardian over that. One of our original members who's recently left the area, in large part because of the pollution and the problems it was causing for her daughter's breathing, she launched a nationwide petition which has got over 5,000 signatures, calling on the government to implement clean air zones and meet the World Health Organization targets. And the article on the left in the Times is about that. And we've done stunts and various things on the A6 to raise awareness. We've done things around idling, traffic counts, opposing planning applications that would worsen air pollution, quite a variety of stuff. If you just go on to the next slide. So why is air pollution bad? How bad is it in Manchester? Well, the estimates are that between over 1,000 and over 2,000 people die prematurely from air pollution in Greater Manchester every year. It's linked to damages almost every organ of the body, asthma, first-time asthma, and also worsening asthma symptoms, heart disease, lung cancer, dementia. And Central Manchester actually has the highest emergency admissions for asthma in the whole country, which is absolutely shocking. And children are particularly vulnerable. Air pollution is known to stunt the growth of children's lungs and can lead to lifelong health conditions. And according to UNICEF, 80% of children in Manchester are living in areas with illegal levels of air pollution. And this is a photograph from a photo they did action about a year ago, just outside the Central Library. So where do schools fit into this? We'll just move on to the next slide. So this is a picture of, this is one I took, this is Broome Avenue. If you don't know it, behind the red railings on the left, that's Super Kids Nursery and the Levenshulme Shore Start Centre, and the playground is literally just behind those fences, and a bit further down is St Andrew's Primary School. So we know that up to a quarter of the morning rush hour is school journeys. So there's, you know, a significant amount of congestion is just from people being taken to school. And as you can see in this picture, and there's many more we could show you, there's a huge amount of congestion, there's idling vehicles, so lots of fumes, there's a lot of pavement parking, so it's not very safe for kids that are walking or scooting or cycling, and it's generally just quite an unsafe environment. And this is obviously exacerbated now with the COVID-19 situation and the need for social distancing. And we've got other people on this call from other schools who can say a little bit more about what the situation is outside Alma Park and St Mary's in particular. And just finally, that last figure there is about short journeys and how much cars make up short journeys in Greater Manchester. So apparently 30% of trips under 1 kilometre in Manchester are done by motor vehicle, and for journeys between 1 and 2 kilometres that goes up to 62%. So we think there's a big potential for short journeys to be shifted to more active modes of travel, and of course public transport, which would reduce the amount of cars on our roads, reduce the amount of pollution. And we know that, you know, most primary schools in Levenshulme do have quite small catchment areas, so we think there's a lot of potential here. So just move on to the next one. Oh, the writing's not come up on this slide.
Yeah, that hasn't come up, sorry. It did,
yeah, that's okay. So this slide was about school streets and what they are. The photo in the corner, that's Alma Park. That was a photo that Lorenza, who's on the call and can talk a little bit more about the situation there in the discussion, shared, to show that it's really impossible for social distancing on the narrow pavements outside the school. And in that area, there's also St Mary's children trying to get to school, so it's extremely congested. So what are school streets? If you've not heard of them, they're temporary closures of the roads outside school just for drop-off and for pick-up, so about 30 minutes, to enable more children to get to school safely. And
1 minute, Helen.
1 minute, free from car fumes, free from unsafe vehicles. And the government has actually been telling local authorities to introduce school streets, or at least look into it, as a response to COVID-19 and to enable more social distancing. So it's, you know, it's really disappointing that nothing has happened so far in Manchester, or very little has happened. And they're increasingly common in London. There's about over 400 now, and they're also being trialled in Leeds, Liverpool, Leicester, many parts of the country. And there are exemptions for people with blue badges, for residents and businesses that need access. So we'll just go on to the next slide, and it's a picture of the one school street that we know of. There may be more in Manchester. This is St Paul's Primary School over in Withington, and you can see it's much better for social distancing, for air quality, road safety, for climate change, and for health.
Could you sum up now, please, Helen?
Yeah, so finally, this is just a last slide about the benefits. So if you're on the pavement, you're exposed to between 9 to 12 times less pollution than inside a car, so that's much better for children's health. And active travel to school is a great boost towards meeting the exercise recommendation, which is 60 minutes a day for children. So there's lots of positive benefits for active travel and health. And so just the very last slide is just a little plug for what we're trying to do on Clean Air Day, which is coming up on the 8th of October. There was a few bullets there, but basically we've got a stall at Levy Market on the 3rd of October, and if you'd like to come and find out more and get involved, please come along then. And on the 8th of October, we're going to be asking all our primary schools to support a walk to school, scoot to school, cycle to school.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, so both Helen and Giselle have been working with the school streets idea. And as far as we understand it, these plans for a low traffic neighbourhood, which were going to be trialled in July, central to those plans were having lots of school streets out of, I think, almost all the schools in Levenshulme and the part of Burnage for which the scheme covered. And that was building on the work that local residents have done already over several years to try and bring them into being. And as a campaign group, Streets for People, we've spent the summer warning councillors about the problem of social distancing and air pollution that's going to be coming up in September, and we didn't find anything, any plan B, having postponed those trials. So we're really worried about what was going to happen. It's so unfortunate to see that situation actually come to fruition. It gives us no pleasure whatsoever. So we're asking councillors that if they're still going to keep delaying these trials, then they need to have something in place that replaces that. So Helen, sorry, Giselle. So next slide, please. Giselle's going to be talking about the journey to school as well as what happens outside the school. Okay, over to you, Giselle. 6 minutes. Thank you.
Andy, can I try share my screen? Let's see if that works, because I think the
You can't share it because there's only one host. We couldn't afford to buy any more hosts off Zoom because we haven't got any money.
There's an enticing button that I can click, but it doesn't work. Right.
Sorry.
So, yeah, in Levenshulme, we've got 6 schools which are pretty close together, as you can see over here. If you click, will there something come up? Andy? No?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Coming, and again,
yeah,
and again.
Keep going.
For the people that don't like looking at maps, if you pop back one, there we go. We've got 6 schools very close together. Some of them are in Levenshulme and some are in Burnage. The lines give you some idea of the main roads in Fallowfield Loop. And if we look at the number of children per school, you can see that we've got over 2,500 children attending only these 6 primary schools. So that's a lot of potential journeys that are made every day to and from school, which is quite a contributor to our congested traffic. Right, next slide. In England, we've got 98% of children accompanied to school by an adult, which is not surprising. And it is then not surprising that 42% of those are in a car or van, just because of the time it takes the poor accompanying parent. And nationally in England, the distance is 1.5 miles. In Levenshulme, I would expect that to be substantially lower, simply because we have higher density and we have a higher number of schools nearby. Next slide. If we're looking at a 10-minute walk to school, which would mean a 20-minute walk for the accompanying adult, this is how far you could get from the 6 schools in the area. So you can't see the detail, obviously, it's a bit too zoomed out, but it's not particularly far. If we look at a 20-minute walk, next slide, we suddenly have a much bigger picture, and I would reckon that the vast majority of children live within a 20-minute walk of their school. Next slide. So how can we do something about this? Well, how about a walking school bus? What is a walking school bus? A walking school bus is children walking to school together with adult supervision, following a set route. There are some obvious benefits. There's reduced traffic at the school gates, which is safer for everyone and improves air quality for everyone. There is also safety is better than children walking without an adult accompaniment. It keeps them away from traffic and from crime. It saves parents time because they don't have to walk along with their kids. There'll be somebody else walking with them. And it helps activity levels. As Helen mentioned, you're aiming at 60 minutes of by the Elmer Park parents. There are well in excess of 200 parking spaces between Tesco Metro and the Royal Nawab. So if you have a park and stride based from there, you could run a walking school bus from that parking lot, which would serve all the 6 schools in the area. So the problem is that you would need to have some people volunteering to walk part of the distance. You could quite easily set up a bus which serves all 6 schools with volunteers branching off at various points. So if we get our map back in the end, you'll see, I'll make my slides available later. They'll be up, and if you like maps and that sort of thing, you can have a look. There would probably be 2 walking school buses. One would go from, here comes our map, keep ticking. There we go. So we would leave the Park and Stride and we would head onto the loop, pop east and west. Chapel Street might have a bit of a shortcut if they don't follow the route. The longest distance there is Acacias, which would take 23 minutes at child walking speed of 4 kilometers an hour. 4 kilometers an hour is slightly slower than an adult would walk, but is reasonable for a child. Some people are probably going to say, what about younger children? Younger children could perhaps scoot instead. Quite often children are more able than we give them credit for, and that's come up in the research previously. Once we've looked at the Park and Stride locations, I expanded my search to say, well, where could other people walk? And I found that, you can give us another click, Andrew.
1 minute.
Yeah, this is the last slide, well, second last slide. The big circle at the top there, I could find no safe walking route that I would be prepared to send children down, even with adult accompaniment in any sort of formal walking school bus. There's very limited crossings of Albert Road. And how can we set one of these up? Well, there's 2 main options. There's a formal bus, which requires quite a lot of paperwork. You need your schools and your council to agree, you need insurance, you need DBS checks, you need somebody to be coordinating all the roles, you need quite a few volunteers, you need paid staff, and it's quite a formal process and it takes quite a while. There is an informal bus, which we could think about starting now even. You would ideally find parents whose children live near to each other to form a bus together, and they would share driving duties. And the research indicates that these are quite strong and they tend to keep going because the parents know each other or learn to know each other, and they share the duties of driving. So they could perhaps do a relay system where you walk to the next person's house and then they take over and walk to the next house, or you could do something like Monday I drive, Tuesday you drive, Wednesday somebody else drives. So you would have 4 days a week where you wouldn't have to drive the bus and you would be able to do something else instead of shepherding your child. Of course,
Last
COVID
point.
is a problem.
COVID's a
and COVID's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. And it's really great to see the work you've done. And obviously it deals, I think, with one of the problems perhaps about school streets is that people that have to drive to work don't have much time, so it's tempting to drop the kids off in your car on the way to work, and that's understandable. But things like walking buses can relieve that pressure and bring all those benefits. Then that's great. And as a group, we're gonna try and work with everyone we can to bring those sort of things together, whatever the council decides to do. Okay, and finally, Vive. Like I say, Vive's from Joyriders, which is a self-organized women's cycling group that's got really successful in the past few years in London, and we want to try and set up a similar group here in Levenshulme and Burnage. So Vive doesn't have slides, she's going to just talk, so maybe if we could turn share screen off while she does that. Is 6 or 7 minutes okay, Vive?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just set my own timer. Well, hi everyone, and thanks very much for inviting me to take part in this. Thanks to Russell for organising that. Very quickly, joyriderslondon.org is our website. If anyone wants to have a look, we've been around for about since the end of 2016. My current career is a cycling instructor and community activist. So I know a bit about cycling in particular. I've been in the UK for 15 years, but as you have probably already noticed, I haven't lost my accent. So first I'll talk a little bit about Joyriders. We've been around for 3 years, a bit more than 3 years, it's our 4th year. It began with a school mum who talked to other school mums and asked them why they didn't cycle, and discovered that a lot of them would like to cycle but didn't think it was for them. And in fact, in Britain, 70% of all regular cyclists are men, which was a really interesting discovery. Our objective is to get thousands and thousands and thousands more women cycling, not just in London, but right across the country. This year, we had planned to run about 150 rides, and that would be for everybody from beginners, so people who've just learned to ride or are just returning to riding, who may not have the ability actually to cycle much more than say 8 or 10 kilometres, not very far. And we were going to run everything up to commuter rides for women, like led commuter rides, and we were going to run more advanced rides. But normally in the past, we've typically done beginner up to intermediate, so maybe up to 25 to 30 kilometre rides, where we will go out on a ride. We're not a sporting riding club. We don't wear lycra. We just go for a ride. We enjoy each other's company. We stop for coffee and cake, and then we go back to where we came from. And it's really about getting women to see that riding a bike can be for them. And our experience has been that when women start to ride, if their family hasn't previously been riding either, the family will also start to ride. So it's a real sort of knock-on effect that you can get happening. Since the lockdown began, when obviously I said we did plan to run 150 rides, we only just started running them again last week, and we anticipate that might last a couple of weeks given the current situation. But what we discovered in our rides is that about 50% of women said, when we asked them, we did surveys, said the roads are too dangerous to ride on. They lacked the confidence to ride. They didn't know where to ride. They didn't have, they thought they had to wear special clothes. They were worried about what people would think, all sorts of things like that. And you can overcome a lot of that just by riding in groups. Some of our riders who began from nothing have actually gone on to become ride leaders and cycling instructors even. So it's been a real revelation to a number of women. And if you look on our website, you'll see some case studies on there that will just astonish you. Doctors who are now riding to work, teachers who are now riding to school and being advocates for cycling, where these were people who used to, as a matter of course, go and hop in the car and drive everywhere. So it's a matter of getting those people. And I think that's the real thing about Joyriders is we did a lot of outreach work. So you can't expect people to just come to you. You've got to go out to them. And that might be in schools, it might be in faith groups, it can be in community organisations, and just find people who say, oh yeah, I'll give it a go. That's all you need. Give it a go. And typically people will come along and they'll begin saying, things they'll be astonished by how much their life changed, how free they feel. That's a really common quote that we get. I can't believe, like getting to know a mixed group of lovely ladies. Joyriders has developed a key worker commuter route to central London, and I'm going to try it out before the roads get busy again. That was a coronavirus one. We've got thousands, and on our website you'll see these as well. Lots of quotes from people just saying how much fun they have. The practical side of this is you need ride leaders, people who are going to not just organise the rides, but are going to lead the rides. And they need training. They need to be competent cyclists. We run a training program. We'd be very happy to help you guys with that. And they've got to do the training. They've got to have at least bikeability level 3. They've got to understand how they look after a group. They'll need first aid training. You'll need insurance. They're the practicalities of it. But we've managed over the period of time now, and with lockdown, we're on the news, our social media presence has exploded. We're doing videos of commuter routes, videos of commute routes of the week, and we're getting more and more people calling in. Yesterday we did a session on dealing with aggressive drivers, and we had people calling in to that from around the country.
Sorry. Sorry, Viv. We've got about a minute left for now.
Yep.
We'll bring
No
back
worries.
in later. But I was wondering, especially about, as I understand it, the group grew up around new walking and cycling infrastructure in the parts of London where it has, and you know, it's I guess one of the big issues here is about do filters and that sort of making roads less car centric make any difference to women sort of clean cycling?
Yeah, this is the Times today. If anyone wants to have a look, that's all about Waltham Forest, which is where we're based. And I've been had quite a lot to do with getting low traffic neighbourhoods in Waltham Forest. They've been a real bonus for joyriders, but most of them weren't there when we began. So we have worked with council, and we continue to work with council a lot, and they support us in getting women to ride. But what I would say about LTNs is it's a long, hard slog. It really is. And you've got to organise, and you've got to engage with people personally and get them involved and committed. And it's the only way, and you've got to nag them, because it's never the most important thing on the agenda, ever. There's always something else. So from my perspective here in Waltham Forest, where I think we've made huge strides and we're not there yet, that would be my feedback to you is, you know, this has been going on in Waltham Forest since 2013 and we're still not there, even though we get spreads in the Times.
And I think it shows as well that, you know, it's the council put in infrastructure, but you need people like yourself really engaged in the community to make that actually produce the changes that we want to see in terms
you've got to bring the people to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks. And we will bring the speakers back in as part of the discussion. So please stick around if you can. Yeah,
sure.
Thanks very much. So Andrew, if you can share the slides again, please. And go back to slide 3. Brilliant. Thank you. So this is the part of the meeting now where people can have their say. We've thought quite a lot about how we're going to manage this, and we think we're going to try and keep it as simple as possible. It's possible not everyone will have a chance to speak or ask a question, although we're going to try. If you want to speak or ask a question, hit the participants button at the bottom of the screen. That should bring up a list of names, and then you can have the option to raise your hand. There should be some 3 dots at the bottom where it says invite, mute me, and then 3 dots. If you click on the 3 dots, you can raise your hand. And what that means is whoever raises their hand first speaks first, just like in a normal public meeting, I suppose. And so we're just going to call the people to speak in the order that they've raised their hand. So,
got a question from Harriet Hall first.
Harriet Hall is the first person to raise their hand. And please keep the questions and comments brief, because we're expecting quite a few people would want to talk. And please, I remind you as well that it's being recorded, and if you don't want your contribution to be broadcast subsequently, just let us know before you start speaking. Is Harriet,
if you want to, if Harriet wants to unmute herself.
You need to unmute yourself. Okay.
Well, I can do it.
Oh, you can do it. Okay.
I've unmuted myself. I was just
well done.
kicking someone out of the room. Thank you so much to the speakers. I am a nervous cyclist, so I'm really intrigued about the last speaker. And I just wanted to, my question really is about kind of those children that don't have a voice here. I am a car owner who needs my car to drive to remote places for work. I'm not anti-cars, but I think we've come to a place, especially in Levenshulme, where cars rule. I am a parent who has to walk my 11-year-old visually impaired child to school, and daily I see illegal traffic violations. But as well as that, I see very reasonable people making lazy choices like dropping off at crossings, which makes crossing the road really hazardous, and mounting pavements to park the car. It's a convenient choice for them, but it's dangerous for my child. He's visually impaired, which means he cannot see if things are moving or still or how fast. He needs a clear view to be able to cross the road. As more electric cars exist, he has to make a judgment about every single car he encounters. So every time there's a wide pavement with a big car parked on it, he has to make that decision whether it's safe or whether it's about to move or if it's an electric car. He can't see a driver's flick of the finger to wave him across the road. What's your problem? Get across the road. You can see me. I'm letting you across the road. It just doesn't work for him. And I've walked in places where pavement parking is banned, and filtered neighbourhood means that people don't even need to park on the pavement. I'm not in constant high alert. Is that car going to mount the pavement? Or when he nips into that shop, second guessing traffic doesn't have to be a pedestrian's job. Less traffic in lockdown meant I could let my son walk to school on his own, which was an absolute miracle. And now I'm back to holding my near teenager's son's hand, a boy's hand, on the pavement. And I just think that I'm just appealing to this, that we need something big and a radical change. And like, where is the voice of all of those children that are asthma sufferers, that have disabilities? You know, they can't speak. So I'd like to sort of raise my hand and say, I want to speak for them. And that's what I wanted to say, really.
That's great. Thank you, Harriet. Really appreciate it. Who have we got next, Andrew?
Next question, Diana Martin, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, thanks for letting me in. I actually live outside of the ward, but I chair a residents association in West Point. Many of the people in West Point think they live in Levenshulme until they vote and discover we actually live in Russia. The original project was covering our area, and we have 2 schools which are not a million miles away from the 6 schools that the previous speaker was talking about. I brokered a meeting with the schools on the project very late on, because the schools themselves were actually outside the area of the project. I'm really keen that the project, I think most people around here are very keen that the project should go in some form, and we recognise that there are all sorts of wrinkles to be ironed out, details to be worked out, and so on. So my question is, who's got the money? As I understood it, and I didn't understand it very well, the money was given to a voluntary group of local people from Levenshulme to do this job. It seems to have disappeared into a puff of smoke. I think the Greater Manchester thought they were giving it to local residents. I don't think they thought they were giving it to Manchester City Council. So my question is, who's got the money, and how can it be brought back to the people of the area who won the money, as I understood it, so that we can restart the process with the City Council, who inevitably need to be involved. They're their streets, they manage them on behalf of us, but they need to be listening to us. But I'm very concerned that the money's sitting somewhere and is going to, as somebody implied at the beginning, disappear because we've run out of time.
Thank you, Diana, very much. And just to remind people, because I'm not seeing a lot of hands sticking up, I'm concerned that that's because people don't know how to do it. They're not used to Zoom calls. So I'll just remind you, at the bottom of your screen, you can see 5 buttons. One says participant, one says chat, one says share screen, one says record, and one says reactions. If you click on the participants button, single click it, that will come up with a list of names. It's all the people's names in the meeting on the right hand side of the screen. And if you go right to the bottom right hand corner of your screen, you see 3 dots in a box, and it's next to invite, mute me, and it's the 3 dots you want to click on, one click, and there's 2 options there. Well, I've got 2 options, but you might just have the option raise hand. Just click on raise hand and you'll get into the queue to ask a question or make a comment. So who have we got next, Andrew?
Do we want to answer Diana's question? About
what we're going to do is I'm going to bring in the speakers after a few comments and questions.
Okay. Right, okay.
Yeah.
So Amy Squire.
Hi, thanks to all the speakers, and I thought that was a really good question, Diana. And I'm also a car driver who would like to see these changes brought in. I guess just picking up on some discussions I've had with other people living in the area, I wanted to ask a question of Helen. So just nitty gritty of school streets, you know, how does it work? How do you know how to let residents drive down but not other people? You know, what happens if lots of cars come to the school streets? Where do they go? Because I'm guessing you might have looked at like other case studies and how it's been managed. So just really interested to find out more. Also, can I just say on the, because it's slightly different for me to raise a hand. So again, click on participants and then it's on the right hand side, midway up the screen.
It's midway up the screen. So you're clicking participants.
That might just be different computers. So hopefully people can find it.
Okay, I hope people are okay with that. Yeah, let us. I don't know how to talk to people to ask them if they're not, but as long as we've got some hands coming up, we should be okay. But we're trying our best here. Some of this technology is new to us as well, so please bear with us, and we'll keep trying to explain how it's working as best we can. Sue is next. Is that right, Andrew? Sue Pascoe.
Yeah.
Pascoe. Yeah.
Hi everyone. I want to say a really big thank you to the speakers and to everyone who's carrying on the work of trying to improve road safety and health for children in the area. I'm really keen to meet up with Giselle and was it Lorenza, who are going to be doing planning some action for Clean Air Day. To propose that we include all of the Levenshulme schools in that Clean Air Day and possibly have a school street trial in all the around all the schools on that day, if it's possible. So I'll meet up with Giselle on the day when she's going to be at the market. So thanks very much again.
Thank you, Sue. Is that all you wanted to say, Sue? Yeah.
Well, just to say that it is really appalling, the air, like Helen said, the air pollution around the schools.
Okay.
Helen, I know that Helen's been doing a lot of monitoring.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So who have we got next, Andrew?
Kate Bradley.
Hi,
Hi,
just
Kate.
want to say thank you to everybody for the really informative talks at the beginning. I learned loads, even though I live here and thought I knew about some of it. But I just wanted to also say something I've noticed around Levenshulme recently that's really relevant to this, and I think maybe getting in touch with people, finding out if this is an issue for lots of people would be good. But because of the level of traffic, I've noticed loads of illegal parking in places where you know, you really are blocking paths. And on 2 occasions on the space between Paddy Power and the Turkish supermarket on Stockport Road, I've seen wheelchair users and power chair users stuck at the curb because someone's just parked over the only bit of curb that they could travel across. And both times I've kind of gone, can I help? And they've just gone, no, I've just got to wait. Because somebody has just callously just parked up while they go for a meal or parked up. And I think reducing the level of traffic would benefit. People have been talking about children a lot, but like anyone who's for whom mobility is difficult, and pushing people out into the road, which happens a lot in Levy, doesn't it? Like when you're walking around, just obstacles getting in your way, and that could be reduced with traffic calming. So really keen to hear if you've had any comments like that and how you think that this could help.
That's great. Thank you, Kate. So I'll probably take three more, and then we'll try and get the speakers back because we're getting a few different questions over different areas.
Yeah. So got Hayley Lismore.
Hi, have I managed to unmute myself?
Oh, I think
Yes.
I've done it, yeah.
Thanks for all the speakers for that information, it was great. I've just got some information myself really. It's for St Mary's parents. I've managed to get a meeting with Bev and Ben, who were Burnage councillors, and I'm going to meet with them on Friday at 10 to 3 on the Irwood Crescent little green there, and that is to discuss the possibility of closing the road during school drop-off and pick-up time. Currently, because obviously the coronavirus restrictions and all of the things that the school have put in place, it's so dangerous. So if anybody would like to come and attend and speak to the councillors too, then please do. We'll be there.
That's great, Hayley. I'm wondering about the rule about 6 people meeting. Have you thought about how many people are coming? I don't want to.
No, I haven't, but it's school pickup anyway, and it's a free-for-all, and it's really dangerous. And there's plenty of room on the green.
Okay, so maybe just keep apart.
Yeah.
And it's the green outside which school? Sorry.
It's St Mary's School, so there's Irwood Crescent,
yeah,
and there's the green just on the crescent.
Well, that's brilliant. Thanks for letting us know. That's really helpful. It's good to see that they want to talk to you about it as well, because we've had difficulties getting hold of those particular counsellors and engaging with them. Okay, Helen. Sorry, Andrew. Who's next? Is it Helen?
Yeah, Helen Power.
And you gave me a nice segue into my question as well. First of all, thank you everybody for speaking. And I'm in childcare mode, so apologies if there's any loud background noise.
It's fine, no problem.
I wanted to say, obviously, it's very shocking that none of the councillors were able to attend this meeting. However, I'm not massively surprised. I think we can all agree, everybody here, that this has become a highly contentious issue, and that may well have fed into whether they're going to engage with groups like this and other groups as well. And for that reason, I wanted to ask what the plans of your group and other groups were to hold our councillors accountable to the fact that we have a large pot of money that, if it's not spent, is not going to stay with us. We have some significant social problems and health problems that need addressing in our area, and it's their responsibility as our elected representatives, and having taken over ownership of this project, to ensure that that's delivered in a satisfactory way.
That's great, thank you, Helen. So the last speaker in this round, the last contributor before the speakers come back, next one is Pat. Is that Patricia Jones? Is that right, Andrew?
Yep, Patricia Jones.
Thank you. And then we'll have time to bring more people in after that.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, right. It's just a couple of questions, really. I've been really interested, and thanks to all the speakers. Joined the group a little bit later, so I wasn't quite sure. I wondered whether it would be possible. I've tried to look online at all the maps where the proposed changes are supposed to be taking place. And every time I try to zoom in and out, everything becomes blurred. And I do wear glasses for reading, but I don't really have problems with my eyesight. I wonder, is there a way of getting a paper copy? I've tried printing it off the maps that are online, and the main roads come out with a name on, but the small roads, everything else seems blurred. Is there a chance that I can get a paper copy of the areas that are included, so that I can stick them all together, and it will give me an idea of how the changes planned, if they're implemented, will affect the whole area? When I've been looking at one area, if they're closing a road here or putting anything that they've got, I don't know how it will then impact on another area. You can only look at one little section at a time. If I can put them all together, then I can look at it and then have a positive way of looking at the whole scheme, really. And the other thing, because I came in late to all these meetings, is there something online where you can actually look at the original written copy for the proposals for the money? Because I'm not really quite sure what the original proposals were for. I thought originally it was for cycleways and as we've talked about with the schools, which I understand, but I'm not really sure. When I saw the you know, the posts that are going up over the bridges and things like that. I wasn't sure whether that was included in the pot of money that was asked for. I might be wrong, and I was just interested whether you can go online and have a look at what the money was originally proposed for. Don't know whether those things are available anyway, but I've been really pleased with listening to everything that everybody's said. So that's my 2 questions.
Oh, thank you very much, Patricia. So what I'd like to do now is just bring back the people who spoke at the start, because they should have some answers to some of these questions or some thoughts about them. So I'll take them in order, and then we're going to come back to the people who've raised their hand. So please keep raising your hand if you wish to come in after that. So we'll go in the same order, if that's all right. So
sorry to interrupt. Sorry, could you mind if I go first? Because I'm going to have to go.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I've left my eldest with someone else, and we need to get to bring back. Sorry about that.
No problem at all.
I'll just come back on a couple of the things then. Amy's question about how do you do it, the school streets. There's lots of different ways. The one in St Paul's over in Withington is literally just a couple of cones, a sign, and a staff member and a parent there. It's a cul-de-sac, so it's a lot easier. So that's how it is in some places. Yeah, people just removing traffic cones, right up to having cameras with I always get it wrong, ANPR, automatic number plate recognition, which is, oh gosh, that's a big piece. There you go, which is a lot more expensive. So I think if it was to happen at St Andrews, it'd be something more like the former. I think at Alma Park or St Mary's, I think it was quite tied in with the bus gate, from what I understand. But perhaps Lorenza might be able to say a little bit more about that, if who's a parent involved in our group and looking at the school streets issue. On Kate's question about the pavement parking, it's absolutely appalling, isn't it? It seems to be getting worse. It's interesting because, oh gosh, sorry. Richard Lees, the leader of the council, says nobody lobbies for pedestrians, but I feel like there's a lot of us residents who are walking around with prams or in wheelchairs or with visual impairments who are always saying how bad it is in Levenshulme, and we need action. So I think we just need to keep shouting about it and getting something to happen, because it does really feel quite unsafe on some of the roads when you're getting, drivers reversing, drivers parking on junctions on Stockport Road in particular is a real problem over tactile paving and things. So yeah, totally agree with that. And then just the question about what's happening with the money from the Residents Association in West Point. I really don't have any idea about this. My only involvement is as most people here, just as a local resident. But I think that's something that we need the council to update us on, and the councillors to update us on. And we're particularly disappointed around the school streets, because it was something that the government have asked councils to do because of COVID, as well as long-standing issues around air quality and things. And it just seems to have not taken any notice of that guidance, which is statutory guidance. And we actually wrote to all councillors in the council address to Angelica, who's the Stogia, who's the exec member for environment and the exec member for schools, a month ago about it, and we haven't heard from anybody. Had one reply, but not a Labour councillor. So yeah, lots of questions, I think. Apologies, I'm going to have to duck out, but if anyone wants to get in touch with our group, our email is levycleanair@gmail.com, and there'll be a few of us down at the market on the 3rd of October if you want to come down and chat about anything. And if there's any more questions, Lorenza is nodding away, I can see, and Giselle can answer as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming, Helen, and look forward to meeting you there. Good luck. I noticed a few people haven't muted their mics, so there's quite a lot of noise on the call at the moment from people who aren't speaking. Thank you. You've all done it. Thanks very much. Joe, your response to the questions and comments?
Yeah, so I think I can, obviously, as a member of the public, I can only answer so much, but in terms of the thing that was Di asking about where the money, who's got the money and stuff like that, my understanding is that LBN, who are the sort of community group who were in control of the project, were always accountable to the council. so the money's always been attached to the council. So I think they were aware of where that was going when it was awarded. In terms of, sorry, I can't remember who asked specifically about the bid, but the original sort of proposal and bid documents are online. I don't know if we've shared to those, Tom. I know we can put that up after. So yeah, they are accessible if anyone wants to read through those. Andrew, I didn't know if you had anything to add on that.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I'm quite happy if I could just, yeah, obviously, just to give people a brief background of it, the bid was formally put in, I think, in kind of early 2019. Pauline and the 11 June B network were always kind of residents and consultants. So it was always a Manchester Council bid with residents kind of supporting the bid. So the money obviously went to Manchester Council, and it was obviously the councillors at every level and every kind of stage it progressed. The councillors and Manchester Council had the sign off and final say. So nothing went forward without Manchester Council say. So I think we need to be aware that obviously it is a Manchester Council bid, and it is obviously supported by the residents. So obviously it's Manchester Council that have ultimately let us down on this. They still have the money. The money was granted from the great Andy Burnham's the combined authority to promote walking and cycling. So the money for this trial was given and has been awarded to Manchester Council. They have got their money to spend on some form of implementation to encourage walking and cycling around Levenshulme. So they have got that. In terms of the last question regarding the plans, which are online, obviously because the trial's changing now, we don't know obviously where the filters are going or what's going to happen. So I'm not sure if there are any more detailed plans, unfortunately, the ones that are online. But yeah, hopefully that we're waiting really for the council now to tell us what's happening and where and obviously where the implementations will be. I think the website, if you go to the website, well, I've just Googled, if you want the original bid documents and all the details of what they're going to do, if you search for Levenshulme B Network bid, that brings it up, and it's levenshulmebnetwork.co.uk, and that's got all the documents there, so that's an easy way to find it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm not sure if Joe, you still wanted to say anything else, or you just...
I guess I was just going to clarify that obviously we're simply frustrated by not knowing what the plans that they're going to consult us on are up to this point, and that's part of the reason of having these meetings, is to try and push the council to explain where things are at, because we've been given a few deadlines of the plans are coming out mid-September, and obviously that's now being pushed back. So it's sort of showing that there is a time dependent component, because I know there are other similar schemes going on around Manchester. I think you said, Tom, that pot of money is going to all of them. So if we fall back in the queue, there is a concern there around what happens to any further funding we would get after the trial implementation, were that to go forward. But really that all sits on the council. We're obviously just a volunteer group trying to find this stuff out. So if you do want to know more, you will have to sort of contact the councillors themselves or Angeliki at Highways. I'm saying we've got I think the most recent blog is literally just a list of the people you can contact to find this sort of information out. So that's probably the best place to go. So I think that's on the homepage at the moment.
I'm going to share those details at the end of the meeting, because we're going to ask people to contact the councillors. So great, thank you very much, Joe. So Giselle.
Yeah, who's got the money? GMCA has the money. It gets released to Manchester City Council in tranches once business case has been made. This is my understanding as an interested resident rather than anything else. The money is definitely still there, but Manchester has to make the business case for it, and we need to make sure that they do make some kind of business case. As for the maps, I think that was a stylistic thing. It's very hard to make maps that both look good and have all the details on them. But I know a little bit about maps, and it might be possible, perhaps for Streets for People, to take forward, taking the information that's on those maps and putting it into Google Maps. You can add like a layer onto Google Maps that you can click on and off, and then you would be able to use Google Maps just like you would normally, but with the details on, if you think that might be helpful. Haley, I'm a St. Mary's parent. I would love to make the meeting on Friday. I'm just not sure if I can. I might send my husband in my place. For pavement parking, it is absolutely shocking in Levenshulme. I normally cycle, but when I walk, I am flabbergasted. There is currently a government consultation on whether pavement parking should be banned. I think in our case, the problem is because in some places, pavement parking has been normalized. So people then park even where it's not safe to do so, such as across drop curbs and completely blocking the pavement. So if you can respond to that government consultation about banning pavement parking, it's already banned in London, and just say it should be banned unless specifically enabled, and then it would be a lot simpler for enforcement people to enforce places where parking is really, really appalling. As for school streets, APNR, the camera recognition, is in place in London. London has special powers to do almost anything. It's really cool if you live in London, and it's really boring if you live anywhere else in the country. But apparently the rest of the country is supposed to get the powers to use automatic number plate recognition for school streets. So that would mean that residents, say, could go through without penalty, but anyone else would be whacked with a fine. That would be the simplest thing to do, but it's expensive. Failing that, you need permission from the council to block the road, otherwise it's illegal, and you need volunteers to man whatever it is you're blocking, and to handle any aggression that you might face from people who insist it's their right to drive straight past the school at any time. I think that was most of the questions covered. I hope I haven't missed anything.
That's okay, and we don't necessarily have to all cover all the questions anyway, yeah. But it's what we feel like answering. Or so thank you very much, Giselle, for those answers and those contributions. And Viva, I don't think there was any specific questions for you, but just wondering. So you must have been through a similar process of the council trialing things in Waltham Forest and then putting permanent infrastructure in. I know there was a lot of concerns about the Waltham Forest low traffic neighbourhood at the time. Are those concerns still there? What effect has it had on the population, the kind of people who like to sort of cycle and walk? Is it changing the demographic?
Yeah, it absolutely is. The concern, the issues are still there. They haven't gone away. The area of Walthamstow that I live in, our three councillors are actually against the changes and remain against the changes, so much so that we're considering running candidates against them. They really, it's bubbling under the surface, is what I would say. I think, but Rachel Aldred is doing a longitudinal study. She's a professor on the impact of the LTNs, and already the biggest increase has been a change in modal shift has been toward walking away from cars for those very short journeys, and then there has been a significant uptake of cycling as well. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence showing that people have given up their cars, which is fantastic. But yeah, it definitely, every time a new consultation comes up, because we're still ongoing with changes across the borough, it's exactly the same arguments about emergency vehicles, about traffic on the main roads, the air pollution moving to the main roads, you name it. It's all the fault of the pedestrians and cyclists. It's never the fault of the fact that people choose to get in their cars and drive for short journeys. And as far as I can tell, that's going to continue ad infinitum. And the only thing you can do is, like, in many ways, I would say don't engage with the people who are 100% anti, because you'll never ever convince them. Your job is to convince the people who are sitting on the fence, and to make sure that the people who are engaged and wanting the change are out there and engaging. Because if you don't get all the numbers on the street and signing the documents and lobbying their councillors, it won't happen.
Thank you very much, Viv. Okay, so we've got some, the meeting's going to end about 20 to 5, just so everyone knows. So we're going to have a bit more time now for questions from the floor, as it were, or contributions from the floor. And so people have already put their hands up. I noticed that I think at least one person's put their hand up for the second time. I think, Andy, the best thing to do is to prioritise those who haven't spoken yet, and we'll get back to the second hand up if there's time to do so. So who's next on the list?
Susan McPherson.
Hi, Sue.
Hello, thanks for letting me speak. Well, thanks very much for organising this. I have a number of observations and questions. This is meant to be a community campaign group that is interested in improving all roads. That's the tagline. And then someone else has just spoke before and talked about the ability to pull people along with the arguments. So can I just make a couple of observations? Using language like lovely ladies saying that doctors now ride to work and they're liberated is problematic from a diversity point of view. Secondly, will this campaign have a wider political picture that takes into account people's complex lives? That parents are not feckless and tempted to drive to school. They have domestic abuse, they have anxious children, they have 0-hour contracts. And I, for one, am happy to be pulled by any political argument, but this seems to me unclear what you're trying to achieve. Main roads such as Broom Lane, where I live, we see children nearly run over every day. We suffer fumes, so we have a relevant voice and we are right to raise it. But every time residents have raised this in polite terms, all we have had is being blocked or abused, called pleb, witch, etc. I don't want to be rude, but the only way that you pull people is to have a political framework.
You won't be rude. I said that, you won't be. Yeah.
Political framework to accept that we have something to say and not just block our abusers or send like Dorset cyclists chasing us around the internet. It seems to me that having stalls at places like Levy Market could be supplemented with Aldi, with Tesco's, with places that working class people go to. If you want to be diverse and you want to be political, and I know, Tom, you are political because you're in Revolutionary Socialism 21, to my understanding. So you're
so we're not going to get into what groups
but
individual.
But the point
can't do that either with me or anyone else. And please
fine.
wrap up what you're saying. Yeah.
So my question is, have you got a political purpose? Are you going to take into account the wider picture of working class life in Levenshulme and ensure that things are phrased in a way that do take into account of people's complex lives and are not alienated by language such as doctors are going to ride to work and lovely ladies will meet each other? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue. So who's next, Andy?
So we've got Susan Pascoe.
So I think Sue spoke before, Andy. So it's
okay.
I was going to suggest people haven't spoken yet. Go next.
Sorry, yeah. So we move on to Amy Lyon.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
3 points. And so number one, I've been living in Levenshulme for 10 years now. And in fact, 10 years ago, I wrote to the council several times and complaining about big discount shop or some other shops. Now there are a lot more of them on the high street in Levenshulme, and they are occupying a lot of space on the pavement. And so that doesn't actually make the pedestrians movement easy either. And this linked to what kind of support we are getting from the local councillors. In fact, I feel like the local councillors are only working for those shop owners, not the local residents who actually live over here. And most of the plans are actually prioritized because of the needs of the those local shops on the high street. So I really like to see more support from the councillors, because after writing to the council several times, I simply gave up because I didn't see any improvement. And in fact, I can only see more shops opening in Levenshulme. And the second point I'd like to make is the engagement with the Asian ethnic groups, and because a large population in Levenshulme is actually from the Asian communities, myself included, and I feel like I'm quite informed of the development, positive development in Levenshulme. But I also feel like my neighbors, they are not that engaged or informed, but I don't know how to engage with them. So I was just wondering if some of the money can be spent on community engagement particularly speaking to the Asian residents over here? Or can the council get involved and try to help us to do the consultation with a specific ethnic groups in Levenshulme? So yeah, that's the 2 points over here.
Thank you. Tom, should you take another question?
I think, Tom, you've muted yourself.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
We'll take another question.
I was going to do that at some point, wasn't I? Is it Claire? Is it Claire next?
Claire James.
Andy?
Claire James, yeah.
Ah, I think
Claire?
she's dropped off.
No.
She seems to have dropped off the call. Is that
No,
right?
she's
No, she's still on the call. Can you unmute her, perhaps?
Claire? Yeah, I can ask to unmute.
Hello,
Oh,
sorry. I think I was muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. It's interesting, actually, coming after the previous two people who've been speaking, because I've been asked to speak on behalf of neighbours who are busy parents who are with their children this weekend and they can't spare the time to come on the call. And as an older person, you know, I haven't got those responsibilities. And my neighbours feel very, very strongly about where they live on the edge of Levenshulme. You know, we're up in the corner towards Gorton, just off Mount Road. And my neighbours have to cross busy roads in order to get to school, to go to Chapel Street and to go to St Andrews and the other primary schools. And it's absolutely terrible for them. They just cannot get across the road with their school-aged children, their prams and pushchairs. It's just terrible. And they're really, really concerned about this. And they feel that living where we do, up at the far end of Levenshulme, that we're completely forgotten up here. And whilst everybody's very happy to see traffic calming brought in around the school streets, around Chapel Street, for instance, they feel that these calming measures are going to put increased traffic on Mount Road, Broom Lane, Matthews Lane, and it's just going to make it far worse. And so the person who was speaking before about Broom Lane, you know, I absolutely concur with her. It's a complete nightmare, morning and afternoon, for parents trying to get their children to school. So, you know, we really urge something to be done for the people who live in our part of Manchester, in part of Levenshulme. It's an impassioned plea.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
That's okay. Tom's muted himself. Thank you very much.
I've done it again. I'm so sorry. No, thank you very much. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Sarah Perry.
No, please don't forget those of us who live at the top end.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
So, yeah, next question, Sarah Perry.
Hi guys, how are you? So I wanted to say that of the £700,000 that was originally available for this LTN, there's less than 500 grand left. Do you not think that the best way to spend that money to benefit everybody would be on timed school street closures, traffic calming measures, traffic lights, rather than just chucking in 29 roadblocks and pushing more traffic onto the boundary roads like Broom Lane where I live, Cromwell Grove, Matthews Lane, Grange Drive? Where does School for Streets stand on that? Because it's not being clear in your communications. So therefore, do we support you or not comes down to what your position is on that. Because it's
Sorry, are you asking us if we support what on Broom Lane?
well, shouldn't these? Are you in favour of 29 roadblocks across Levenshulme and Burnage, or do you think that the remaining £450,000 from the £700,000 that was awarded should be best spent on measures that benefit the whole community equally, rather than being spent on 29 roadblocks, which will therefore push large amounts of traffic onto the boundary roads, because that's where the problem is in the community, and that's where the divide is in the community. So thoughts, please, Tom?
Well, thanks very much, Sarah. Okay, I'm going to bring in, we've got one more, okay, and then we'll go back to the speakers.
V Ford, if you want to ask your question then.
No, Viv is one of the speakers.
It's not a question. It's not a question. I have some answers about traffic evaporation.
Okay, but can we bring Viv back after we've had the contributions?
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
So Sue Pascoe, it's all right.
Hello again. I'm just thinking that, especially in relation to the last few people who participated, is there a way of...
Can everyone mute their mics if they're not being called to speak? Please, thank you.
Is there
Sue,
a way
carry on.
Is there a way of representing all the plans that were made and trying to embrace you know, the complaints that were made, and trying to help people understand more about how the plans will be beneficial for all of the area, and yeah, just to unify all that's been done across Levenshulme and Burnage with different groups of people who actually really want the same thing. I think really everybody wants less traffic and safer areas and healthier areas.
Okay, thank you, Sue. I would say before we bring the speakers back, these speakers aren't responsible for whatever the council does next. The speakers have got, you know, we've got our own opinions about what might happen, but we're not, we're as interested to know what the council's plans are as anyone else. So, so the first person I'd like to bring back is Joe. I don't know if you've got any responses or questions to this.
I can try. So yeah, I think, and we said at the outset that we understand the sort of concerns of traffic being different on different roads. I think one thing to bear in mind in terms of using that money for traffic calming measures specifically would be if you put the traffic calming measures alone on these, they're called main roads. It's disputable whether people want them to be main roads. In terms of Broom Lane and Cromwell, they're quite narrow streets that have a lot of traffic down them with front-facing gardens. But if you put traffic calming measures there without any sort of filtration system in place, all you would do is almost the opposite of what you're worried about, where you would push all this traffic onto side streets or whatever you want to call the streets, and you would have almost the reverse problem. So you would have slower traffic, but not necessarily lower traffic. And what we want to do is sort of a combination of the two. That's what Streets for People, hopefully everyone will agree on, is to try and put something in place that works for all those streets. There is, I mean, I've been looking into this, there's definitely nothing, the reason we're presenting the plans that have been shown so far is because they're the most up-to-date plans we have, the old Levenshulme B network ones. There's nothing saying that that's going to be what the council present to us next. So what we hope is that the council have done something to address the concerns of people who live here in trying to make that, to address some of those changes. But also, as I said, we can only use those plans to present because that's all we've got. So at a third point, it'll come back to me. But yeah, I think if people wanted to really push for changes and lower traffic as we do on these streets, the thing to do would be, as Sarah said, use that money. We have money that's left. Surely, as opposed to blocking everything, as the people are worried is going to happen, and pausing to lose that money, the best thing to do would be to go ahead to a trial stage to see what the effects are, and then really hammer in the council that you could potentially filter Broom Lane and Cromwell Grove. There's nothing in these ideas that stops you being able to put filters on streets that people call main roads that could be filtered just like any other road. So yeah, that's my sort of put forward of that. Obviously within Streets for People, we all have slightly different opinions, but I think most of us would agree on that point, that we care about all these streets. It's just a case of making sure that we get to a point where we can trial and sort of tweak and see what effect this has so that we do something, because currently, as I said, we're not doing anything. The council's not doing anything, and not doing anything isn't going to improve anything at all. So I think that's just me trying to sort of encapsulate what we're saying. I don't know if Tom or Andrew want to come in.
Yeah, just to add that we've had 500 signatories to our collective letter to the councillors from across the community, and that letter explicitly says that we're for big improvements and urgent improvements to every street in Levenshulme and every street in Burnage as well, not just the part of what was the B network, but all the streets in Burnage, including Kingsway, including all of them. We're a permanent campaign to make walking and cycling facilities better in our neighbourhood. And whether or not this low traffic neighbourhood thing ever gets off the ground, we'll always campaign for every street to be made safer for walking and cycling. And if indeed the trails go ahead and do create some of the problems that some people, I understand, being worried about changes, and I understand being fearful of them. But if they do indeed happen, which, you know, the people behind these things, the experts say shouldn't, we will be against them too. We will join forces with you in being against them, and we'll clearly have to find a different way forward. That's my promise. So Helen's had to leave us, unfortunately. Giselle, do you have any reactions to what's been said?
Yeah, again, I wasn't part of the Levenshulme B network team, so my understanding is that there's £2.5 million available, of which £700,000 is available to trial the low traffic neighbourhood. The 2.4 million included a whole lot of other interventions which were supposed to be made in addition, and I wholeheartedly agree with the comment about trying to cross Broom Lane and anything from the north. The crossings are dire. They really do need improvement. However, just putting in things like a zebra doesn't solve your problem. My children go to St. Mary's and the drivers routinely ignore the crossing that is already existent on St. Mary's. And I would not feel safe letting my child cross the road, even at the zebra crossing, because the drivers wouldn't respect it. So there is definitely a need to calm traffic on the busy roads, which are going to remain unfiltered. But I think Viva is going to say something more about their experience of a filtered neighborhood, which aims to reduce traffic by reducing some of these shorter journeys, and then by doing something on the roads which remain unfiltered to make them safer and more pleasant to walk and cycle. And yes, there is supposed to be money available for community engagement. So the Levenshulme B network is one implementation of what's a wider Greater Manchester-wide B network project. It's supposed to make walking and cycling better and safer. So if your scheme, which you're bidding for, and you being your city council, it's not groups of residents you can bid for this, it has to be the city council. If your scheme improves walking or cycling, you can go, your city council can go to the Mayor's Challenge Fund and say, we would like to do this and it's going to make walking or cycling better. This is how much money we need to do it. So yes, definitely crossings can be part of the mix. Reducing traffic speeds could be part of the mix. Blocking traffic on certain roads so that they're only available to walk through rather than drive through can be part of the mix, but it has to make walking or cycling better for it to get any money.
Thank you, Giselle. So we're running out of time a little. Sorry, V, but I don't know if you can respond in a minute.
I'll be quick. Very briefly, I think Susan did join late. So the reference to the doctor who is an Asian doctor who rides to work and an Asian teacher who rides to work. 80% of our original cyclists with Joyriders are stay-at-home mums, and 80% of them are in fact Black, Asian and ethnic minority. So we've done a lot of outreach work in that regard. But the main point I want to make is about traffic evaporation. The whole point of a low traffic neighbourhood is to encourage people to choose other modes of transport than a motor vehicle. That's the end of it. It is entirely about making it inconvenient to drive a motor vehicle for short journeys. That's the point of it. It is just as quick to walk, usually a kilometre, than it is to drive, because by the time you go, get in your car, hop in your car, drive it, find somewhere to park, and then walk to your destination. I could have walked there. It takes 4 minutes to cycle 1 kilometre quite slowly. Okay, the point is for short journeys to choose a different mode of transport. The result of that, as shown in many recent studies, and I can send you the references for all of these, at least 7, is that there is less motor vehicle traffic as a whole. In Waltham Forest, our level of motor vehicle traffic has not increased. It's gone down by 90% on the roads that have been treated. It's gone down by 16% on some of our main roads. So it is not about moving the traffic from one place to another. It is about people choosing to travel in a different way. Thanks.
Thanks very much, V, for that, and really appreciate you coming on to our call. If anybody would like to help us set up a cycling group such as the Joyriders group have in London, where we can get more people empowered from the community to try cycling who are women, we'd really appreciate your help. Anyone, I'm going to put up the email address just in a second. Andrew's on it, and just show you one last slide to close the meeting. So it should be the last slide on that presentation.
Yeah, sorry.
Andrew. No, it's all right. And while he's doing that, I'd just like to thank everyone from the speakers to everyone who's attended. I really appreciate people coming on who clearly disagree with us quite passionately, and the majority of them doing so in a way that can be constructive. So this is the last slide. This is from our website. Like I say, there's our email address at the top if you want to get hold of us. A lot of people won't have had time to ask questions, so please do get hold of us. But I'd like to point you specifically to, at the top there on the right, the button that says Take Action. And if you click on that, there's 2 things we're asking people to do. The first is to contact all of our counsellors and urge them to have a public meeting about this issue. Whatever you believe or whatever you think about this issue and whatever they think, these conversations need to be held out in the open. We think the councillors are too scared to have these conversations with residents, and we think we've demonstrated today that it's perfectly possible to do and actually very constructive. But it needs to happen soon. They need to be able to have the kind of meeting we've had today, but be there themselves within the next 2 or 3 weeks. We can't wait months and months to have this public engagement. It has to happen now. So you will see their phone numbers and their email addresses. If everyone on this call would like to get hold of them in those ways, we'd really appreciate it. And just ask them to organise that public meeting or respond to our doodle poll, which we sent them, asking them when they're available. That would be really appreciated. The second thing is, I mentioned our collective letter, which is there on as well on the front page of our website. So far, we've had 500 people sign it, and they're people who either live or work or have kids that go to school in Levenshulme and Burnage. Please have a read. If you haven't signed it, sign it. Please share it, though, with local residents. Ask them to sign it too. This is to show the councillors that however we're going to do this, whatever the intricacies of the infrastructure or whatever, we need this stuff to happen. And we need it to happen for very important reasons: air pollution, transport poverty, climate change. And we can't wait months and months for these changes to start to happen. They have to start happening now. And that's the point of the letter. And we want to be inclusive and help people through that change. And we want it for all of the streets, not just the ones that are supposed to be filtered or whatever, all of the streets. And so we really appreciate if you could direct people to that letter to sign it. Thirdly, we've made great strides in the past. This organisation, unbelievably, is about 2 months old. And we've done incredible things in that time. We've already got quite a big group of people who organise it. We want more people to, and we want a more someone talked about diversity. We need a more diverse group. We need to get to those parts of the community which haven't really been involved as yet. And we really need people's help with that. So whatever you can do, and there's a lot of people in our organising group who just do things whenever they can. Their parents, someone mentioned about childcare, and that's all taken into account. Whatever small thing you can do, we've all got connections in this community, and we can get that conversation going and make these changes. I'm personally quite optimistic that these changes will happen, but they're only going to happen if we organise, as Viv said, and we keep that pressure on, and we make that organisation as wide as possible. But thanks for coming to our meeting. Really appreciate it. And email us any feedback about the meeting, anything we can try and do better in the future, and we'll see what we can do. But that's it for me for now. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of the day. It's looking nice outside.